flight agent humiliated fat passenger at the airport. Unknowingly, she was aviation inspector Vanessa Kane's smile froze on her face when she heard her voice too loud, calculated high, echoing through the boarding gate 23. Really? They will let it fly in business class? She was there, a handbag in front of her body, ticket printed on her right hand, trying to ignore the eyes that began to turn toward her. Vanessa was 38 years old, a body that society insisted on calling plus size like an educated euphemism, and a dignity that no one had yet managed to get it out of it, not for lack of attempt. The flying agent who spoke was young, blonde, with such a tight bun he seemed to hurt just looking. His badge shone under the fluorescent lights of the airport. Madison Cole, senior agent. She was standing next to the boarding counter, looking straight at Vanessa, without even trying to disguise. "Madison, please," another commissioner whispered next to her, clearly uncomfortable. "What?" Madison turned to her colleague with a false innocence expression. "I'm just saying that maybe she was more comfortable in the economy class. You know how it is, the executive seats are smaller, more exclusive." Vanessa felt the heat go up her neck. It was not ashamed. It was pure anger, distilled in years of situations just like that. Airports were silent battlefields for people like her. Every trial look, every whispered comment, every, "Excuse lady, but," it was a little war that she looked for alone. But Madison Cole was not whispering. Vanessa was born in a suburb of Detroit, daughter of a seamstress and a mechanic. He grew up listening that big girls need to work twice more to get half respect. Her mother said this as she adjusted school uniforms that never served right, while Vanessa cried in the dressing room because the other girls laughed at her in the locker room. At 16, she swore to herself no one else would make her feel small, and she fulfilled. He graduated in aeronautical engineering with honors. He worked on aircraft maintenance for years, climbing step by step in a world dominated by men who doubted her every second. Until at 32, he passed the most difficult contest in the country, Federal Civil Aviation Inspector. 6 years later, Vanessa Kane was one of the department's most respected professionals, invisible to most, feared by those who knew who she was. But there, in that boarding gate, she was just another fat passenger being humiliated in public. "Look, without offense," Madison continued, now heading directly to Vanessa, with a smile that didn't even come close to her eyes, "but I think it would be better for everyone if you considered relocate, to avoid constraints on the flight." Vanessa took a deep breath. She could feel the cell phone cameras getting up around her, the passengers pretending not to look as they recorded every second. Public humiliation was the favorite dish of the internet, and she knew that. A tender man sitting near the counter shook his head, as if he agreed with Madison. An older woman whispered something to her husband, they both looking at Vanessa with a feather mixed with contempt. No one was going to intervene. Never intervened. "My ticket is correct," said Vanessa, with a glacial calm that surprised her herself. "Third seat, executive class." Madison rolled her eyes with exaggerated theatricality. "Of course it is, but I have been a senior agent of this company for 6 years. I've seen everything, and I can guarantee that you will have problems with the seatbelt. It will delay the entire flight. It will bother the other passengers." She took a dramatic break, crossing her arms. "So I'm giving you a chance to avoid a scene." Vanessa looked around. He saw facing faces, curious eyes, some embarrassed, some fun. He saw a teenager holding his cell phone at chest height, clearly recording. He saw the other commissioner next to Madison's eyes, embarrassed but silent. She had lived this scene before, in restaurants, in stores, in gyms, in job interviews where the recruiter looked at her and already decided that it was not the profile they sought. But today it was different. Today Vanessa Kane was not traveling to leisure. "Are you sure you want to do this here?" asked Vanessa softly, but with a firmness that made Madison hesitate for half a second. Madison giggled, recovering confidence. "Honey, I'm not doing anything but my work. I am protecting the experience of our premium passengers." She turned to the other passengers with a performative smile. "Does anyone here think I'm being unfair?" Silence. No one said anything. Madison looked back at Vanessa triumphantly. "So, as I said," that's when Vanessa opened the bag, slowly, no hurry, and He wondered something that made Madison smile hesitates for a second fraction. A small black leather holder, discreet, professional. Vanessa didn't open it. Not yet. He just held him between his fingers, as who holds an ace in his sleeve. "You know, Madison," she said, too calmly to the storm that was about to collapse, "you're right about one thing. I will really change seats today." Madison frowned, confused but still confident. "Great, so let's solve it soon but not for the economy." The silence became denser. Some passengers leaned forward, curious. Madison gave a nervous laugh. "Sorry, what?" Vanessa stepped forward, her fixed eyes on Madison. I'm going to the command booth. The confusion on Madison's face has become irritation. Look, now you're being ridiculous. I don't know what game you were trying to play, but... And that's when Vanessa opened the credential holder. The badge shone under the cold light of the airport, the unmistakable federal seal. Vanessa Kane, Federal Civil Aviation Inspector, Department of Safety and Operational Conduct. The color disappeared from the face of Madison Cole, completely. His lips opened, but no sound came out. His eyes widened, fixed on the badge, as if he was seeing a ghost. Around them, the passengers began to whisper. Some got up to see better. The teenager who was recording adjusted the angle of the camera, realizing that he had just captured viral gold. Vanessa tilted her head slightly, without taking her eyes out of Madison. As I said, I'll need to access the cabin. I'm here on an official mission. Surprise inspection. She paused, letting each word weigh in the air. And you, Madison Cole, senior agent, has just become the first person I will interview. Madison opened her mouth, closed. It opened again. I didn't know. Of course I didn't know, Vanessa interrupted, her voice still calm but sharp as glass. Because you looked at me and saw just one thing. A fat passenger. Not a professional, not a person, just a problem. The commissioners in the background began to slowly retreat, as if they wanted to disappear. The one that was next to Madison stepped back, clearly trying to distance himself. Vanessa kept the badge back in the bag and adjusted the handle on her shoulder. Now, Madison, you'll take me to the booth, and on the way we will have a very interesting conversation about protocols of care, discrimination, and... She smiled for the first time, a cold smile. How to protect the experience of premium passengers. If you are enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what happens now? Madison Cole still has no idea of hell that has just opened. Madison Cole couldn't stop shaking. Her hands held the edge of the boarding counter as if it were the only thing preventing her from collapsing on the floor. Around her, the passengers still whispered, some openly recording now, some simply watching the disaster unfolds in real time. Vanessa Kane remained standing, waiting. I didn't say anything else. I didn't need to. Silence was much more powerful than any speech. I'm sorry, Madison finally managed to say, her voice coming out hoarse. I didn't know who you were. Vanessa tilted her head slightly. What if I wasn't Inspector? If I was just an ordinary passenger? Would that change anything? Madison opened her mouth, but no answer came out. Because both knew the truth, it would not change anything. She would have humiliated Vanessa the same way. Come on, Vanessa said, her voice still calm but relentless. You will accompany me to the cabin, now. Madison nodded quickly, taking the radio with trembling hands and murmuring something inaudible to the onboard team. The other commissioner, an older woman named Sarah, approached with caution. Inspector Kane, I can accompany her if she preferred, Sarah offered, her eyes avoiding the Madison. No, Vanessa replied without taking her eyes off Madison. She will take me. After all, it's the senior agent, isn't it? 6 years of experience. You must know all the protocols. Madison swallowed dry and began walking toward the boarding tunnel, Vanessa behind. The passengers made their way automatically, some still holding cell phones at chest height. As they entered the plane, the atmosphere changed. The onboard team was gathered near the galley of the first class, and all the conversation ceased when they saw Madison entering, their face pale, and Vanessa just behind. A tall commissioner with gray hair frowned. Madison, what's going on? She is a federal inspector, Madison whispered, as he admitted aloud to make everything more real. The commissioner paled instantly. Another commissioner let out a low sigh. Everyone knew what a surprise inspection meant. Career at risk, disciplinary processes, possible dismissal. Vanessa observed the reactions with clinical attention. She had done dozens of inspections over the years, but never one. Never after being publicly humiliated. And for the first time in her career, she was not trying to be impartial. I want to talk to the commander, Vanessa said, her voice cutting the silence. Immediately, Madison nodded and followed the narrow corridor to the command booth. He knocked on the door 3 times, every weaker knock than the previous one, as if postponing the inevitable. The door opened, revealing a man of a 50, impeccable uniform, confident expression. What is it, Madison? We're ready to... He stopped, seeing Vanessa behind her. His eyes went straight to the federal badge still visible in Vanessa's hand. Confidence evaporated from his face. Commander Richard Hayes, Vanessa said, entering the cabin without waiting for an invitation. I am Inspector Vanessa Kane, Federal Department of Civil Aviation, surprise inspection. Richard exchanged a quick look with the co-pilot, a younger man who immediately began to check the instruments as if looking for something wrong. Inspector Kane, said Richard, recovering part of the composure. It's a surprise, but welcome. Everything is in order here. I'm sure it's, Vanessa replied, looking around the cabin. But I'm not just here to check security protocols. I am here to evaluate the conduct of the crew. The commander frowned. Conduct? Vanessa turned to Madison, who was huddled near the door, as if she wanted to disappear. Madison, why don't you tell Commander Hayes what happened at the boarding gate 5 minutes ago? Madison turned red. His hands trembled visibly now. There was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, Vanessa repeated, her voice loaded with cold sarcasm. Is that how you call open discrimination against a passenger based solely on her physical appearance? The commander looked from Vanessa to Madison, confusion and alarm growing on his face. Madison, what did you do? She tried to keep me from boarding the business class, Vanessa said, every word falling like a sentence, in front of dozens of passengers. He told me that I should move to the economy to avoid embarrassment. He accused me that I would delay the entire flight because I could not tighten the seatbelt. The silence in the cabin was absolute. Richard Hayes closed his eyes for a moment, as if processing the size of the catastrophe he had just discovered. Madison, he said, his low but furious voice, you're telling me that humiliated a publicly passenger, and this passenger is a federal inspector? Madison started to cry, not that performative cry of those seeking sympathy, but the genuine despair of those who just saw their career collapse. I didn't know. I thought, what did you think? Cut Vanessa. What, because I'm fat I didn't deserve respect? Which, because I don't fit your aesthetic pattern of premium passenger? Could I be treated like trash? Madison did not answer, just kept crying. Vanessa took a deep breath, trying to control the anger that burned in her chest. She had trained years to be objective, professional, impartial, but there, at that moment, all she felt was the accumulated pain of decades of humiliation. Commander Hayes, said Vanessa, turning his attention to him, I will need the training records of the entire crew, especially the modules on discrimination and customer service. I will also need access to complaint reports for the last 6 months. Richard nodded quickly. Of course, Inspector, everything you need. And Madison Cole is suspended from his duties from this moment. She won't work on this flight. Madison sobbed louder. Please, I need this job. I have accounts. Vanessa turned to her, and for the first time, her expression softened only one fraction. You should have thought about it before deciding that humiliating someone in public was acceptable. She left the cabin, leaving Madison destroyed, and the commander visibly shaken. As Vanessa walked back down the hallway, the crew walked away automatically, as if she carried a danger aura, and maybe it would carry. But as she finally settled in the third seat, Vanessa felt something she didn't expect. It wasn't satisfaction. It was empty, because even with all the power I had now, even with Madison crying and the terrified commander, that didn't erase years of pain. It did not go out every time she was treated as less. Each time it was looked with disgust. Each time he had to prove that he deserved to exist in spaces that others occupied without question. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, and then your phone vibrated. A message of an unknown number. Inspector Kane, we need to talk about the Aerolink 447 flight. There is something you need to know about Madison Cole. Something that changes everything. Vanessa frowned, looking at the screen. Who was it? And what the hell did she need to know? What no one expected was that the story of Madison Cole hid a much darker secret, and Vanessa was about to find that sometimes the villains also have their own scars. Vanessa looked at the message for long seconds, the thumb hesitating on the screen. Inspector Kane, we need to talk about the Aerolink 447 flight. There is something you need to know about Madison Cole, something that changes everything. She was about to ignore. Probably some passenger wanting gossip, or worse, some journalist behind a sensational story. But something in the tone of the message bothered her. It was too specific, too straightforward. Vanessa typed quickly, Who are you? The answer came in seconds. Someone who worked with Madison. I can prove it. Find with me at Terminal B. Coffee next to Gate 18 in 40 minutes. I'll be in a blue cap. Vanessa waged the jaw. She had a flight to supervise, reports to fill, an entire crew to interrogate. I didn't have time for games. But curiosity was a slow poison. She looked through the plane window, seeing the frantic movement in the courtyard, the technicians making the latest adjustments, the supply trucks moving away. The flight would take off in 1 hour. Vanessa got up and walked to the cabin again. Commander Hayes was reviewing documents, clearly trying to ensure that everything was perfect for inspection. Commander, Vanessa said, making him jump slightly, I will need to delay my onboard inspection. Something came up. I need to check. Richard nodded quickly, relieved with the postponement. Of course, Inspector. How long do you need? 1 hour? Maybe less. She left the plane and walked through the airport corridors, passing through convenience stores, tourist groups, and hasty executives. Gradually, the anger that still boiled in his chest began to give way to something else. Doubt. What else did she need to know about Madison Cole? The woman had humiliated her publicly, demonstrated explicit prejudice, violated all imaginable codes of conduct. What possible context could change this? Vanessa arrived at Terminal B 15 minutes before the agreed. The coffee was small, tight between an electronics store and a magazine board. She ordered a black coffee and sat at a table in the back, where she could see who came in. At 38 minutes, a woman entered. Young, maybe 25 years. Brown hair tied in a ponytail. Navy blue cap covering part of the face. His eyes searched the coffee until they found Vanessa. She approached slowly, nervous. "Inspector Kane? Sit down," Vanessa said, studying the woman carefully. "Who are you?" The woman sat down, taking the cap and revealing a tired face, deep dark circles. "My name is Alicia Brennan. I was a commissioner of Aerolink. I worked with Madison Cole for 2 years. Was it?" Alicia lowered her eyes. "They fired me 3 months ago." Vanessa crossed her arms, skeptical. "And now you want revenge? Do you want me to end her career because they ended up with yours?" "No," Alicia said quickly, looking straight at Vanessa for the first time. "I want you to know the truth, because if you don't know, you will commit an injustice." Vanessa frowned. "Explain." Alicia took a deep breath as if gathering courage. "Madison Cole is not the villain you think is, or rather, she is, but not for the reasons you imagine." "You have 3 minutes to make sense," Vanessa said, drinking a sip of coffee. "Madison had a younger sister, Julia. She died a year and a half ago. I was 22 years old. Vanessa was still. And what does that have to do with what she did to me?" Alicia pulled her cell phone and opened a picture. He showed to Vanessa. The image showed 2 women laughing together, embraced. One of them was clearly Madison, younger, with a genuine smile that Vanessa had not seen at the airport. The other was a girl with dark hair, bright eyes, and she was plus size. Vanessa felt something strange in her chest but said nothing. "Julia was amazing," Alicia continued, her embargoed voice. "Funny, intelligent, full of life. I wanted to be a commissioner, just like her sister, but she suffered a lot of prejudice. During training, during the interviews. It never managed to pass the final phase. Always the same excuse. Don't fit the company profile. Discrimination," Vanessa murmured. "Exactly. And Madison tried to help. He fought with the supervisors he denounced, did everything he could, but nothing has changed. Julia went into deep depression, and one night, Alicia stopped, swallowing dry. She killed herself. A silencio fell on the table like a tombstone. Vanessa felt her stomach turned. She knew exactly where this story was going to give. After that, Alicia continued, cleaning a tear, Madison changed. It was bitter, angry. He started acting strangely with plus-size passengers, as if she blames them all for what happened to Julia. "It justifies anything," Vanessa said, but her voice came out less firm than she wanted. "I know," said Alicia. "I'm not saying it justifies, I'm saying she's destroyed inside. And how to humiliate you today was her distorted way to deal with her own pain." Vanessa closed her eyes. He thought in Madison crying in the cabin. He thought of how she collapsed when she saw the federal badge. He thought of his own anger, the satisfaction of seeing Madison suffering. "Why are you telling me that?" asked Vanessa, opening her eyes. Alicia hesitated. "Because I saw what happened at the departure gate. It's everywhere on social networks now, and because I know you have the power to completely destroy Madison, but," she paused, "also has the power to help her." "Help her?" repeated Vanessa incredulously. "She humiliated me publicly, violated all the protocols. Why would I help?" "Because you know what it is to be judged by the body," said Alicia, her firm voice now. "You know what it is to carry pain and anger for years, and you know that revenge doesn't heal anything." Vanessa was silent for a long moment. Alicia got up, putting the cap back. "Do what you think is right, Inspector, but know that Madison is not a monster. It's just someone broken trying to survive their own pain the wrong way." She left the coffee, leaving Vanessa alone with her thoughts. Vanessa looked at her cell phone where dozens of notifications exploded. The video of the humiliation at the departure gate was viral. Millions of views, furious comments demanding the resignation of Madison, hashtags asking for justice. And there, in the middle of the digital hurricane, Vanessa Kane faced a choice she didn't expect to have. She could move on with formal inspection, destroying Madison's career officially, make it a public example of intolerance, or could do something completely different, something no one would expect. Vanessa took the cell phone and typed a number she knew by color. After 3 touches, a male voice answered, "Department of Human Resources," says Derek. "Derek, here is Inspector Kane. I need you to pull the full history of Madison Cole, Aerolink Commissioner. I want to see psychological reports, performance evaluations, fault records, all." "Of course, Inspector. Can I ask why?" Vanessa looked through the coffee window watching planes take off on the horizon. "Because I need to know if I'm dealing with a monster or someone who needs help," She hung up and got up. Aerolink 4M47 flight was still waiting, and Vanessa Kane had a decision to make that would change everything. What no one expected was that the most dreaded inspector in the department was about to do something that would break all the rules, and Madison Cole had no idea what was coming. Vanessa Kane returned to the boarding gate 23 exactly 52 minutes after leaving. The flight was still late. The passengers awaited restlessness, some complaining aloud, others distracted on cell phones. The tension in the air was palpable, fueled by viral videos that had already reached millions of people. Madison Cole was sitting alone in an isolated corner of the gate, away from the team. Her impeccable uniform now looked mashed. The perfect bun was undone, loose strands falling by the face. She held her cell phone with trembling hands, seeing her own humiliation being dissected in real time on social networks. Arrogant commissioner humiliates passing and finds that she is a federal inspector. Instant karma. Gordophobic flight agent is exposed. She deserved it. Watch until the end. More than 15 million views in less than an hour. Furious comments demanding your resignation. People marking the airline, requiring positioning. Your full name, your social networks, all exposed. Madison was being destroyed publicly, and part of Vanessa, the part that carried years of humiliation, disgusting looks, evil comments. I felt a dark satisfaction seeing that, but another part, the part that had just heard Julia's story, felt something different. Vanessa walked directly to Madison. The commissioner lifted her eyes, red and swollen, and immediately cringed, as if waiting for another blow. "Inspector, started Madison, the voice breaking. "Come with me," Vanessa interrupted, her neutral voice. "Now." Madison stood up staggering, following Vanessa by a side aisle that led to a private meeting room. Vanessa opened the door and entered. Madison, hesitating soul, "Closes the door," Vanessa ordered. Madison obeyed, trembling visibly. Vanessa turned to her, crossing her arms. For long seconds, he just stared at them, letting silence weigh. "Sit." Madison sat, her hands tight on her lap, unable to look straight at Vanessa. "Do you know why I brought you here?" asked Vanessa. Madison shook her head, tears dripping silently. "Because I talked to Alicia Brennan 40 minutes ago." Madison froze. His eyes widened, finally finding Vanessa's. She told you about Julia?" "Yes." Madison collapsed. He covered his face with his hands and began to sob in a way, years of compressed pain finally finding a way out. Vanessa didn't move, just observed. "Julia was my best friend," Madison said between sobs. "My younger sister. She was everything. Funny, brilliant, full of dreams. I wanted to fly, just like me. I wanted to see the world." Vanessa pulled a chair and sat in front of Madison, keeping distance but present. "And what happened?" Madison cleaned his face with the back of his hand, the makeup completely blurred now. "She passed all the tests. It had perfect notes. I knew all color security protocols, but they never hired her. Always the same excuse. Don't fit the brand's visual profile." His voice was loaded with bitterness. "They never said directly that it was because of her weight, but we all knew. And you tried to help." "I fought with everyone," exploded Madison, the anger finally surfing. "I went to HR, even the directors I threatened to sue, but nothing has changed. And Julia, she started to blame herself. He said he was ugly, it was a burden, which would never be good enough." Vanessa felt a familiar pain in her chest. She knew those words. I had heard them in their own head. "And then she died," Vanessa said softly. Madison nodded, unable to speak. "And you started to hate plus-size people." "No," protested Madison, looking at Vanessa with despair. "It's not that. I don't hate it. I am scared." Vanessa frowned. "Fear." Madison took a deep breath, trembling. "Fear of seeing Julia in each of them. Fear of remembering that I couldn't save her. Fear of," she choked, "that if I'm kind, I'll cling and then I will lose again." The room was silent. Vanessa closed her eyes for a moment, processing. She had been prepared to destroy Madison Cole. It had the reports, the protocols violated, the power to end your career permanently. But now sitting there seeing that broken woman, Vanessa faced an inconvenient truth. Pain does not justify cruelty, but pain explains much. "What you did to me today was wrong," said Vanessa, her firm but unlikely voice. "It was discriminatory, humiliating, and unacceptable." Madison nodded, crying again. "I know, God, I know, and I'm sorry. Not because you are an inspector, but why, you didn't deserve that. No one deserves it." Vanessa leaned forward. "So why did you do it?" Madison looked at her own hands. "Because it is easier to be cruel than to feel pain. Because if I push people away, they can't hurt me. And because," your voice broke, "because I'm still so angry with Julia for leaving me." Vanessa felt tears burn her own eyes but didn't drop them. "You need professional help, Madison. Therapy. It is not weakness. It is survival." "I know." Madison whispered, but now it doesn't matter anymore. My career is over. I am everywhere. I will never be able to work in aviation again. Maybe that's what I deserve. Vanessa was silent for a long moment, and then he did something that she didn't even expect herself. Get up, said Vanessa. Madison looked at her confused. What? Get up. Let's go back to the boarding gate. Inspector, I don't... Now. Madison stood up, staggering, completely lost about what was happening. Vanessa opened the door and the two walked back to the gate. When they arrived, all their eyes turned to them. The board team, the passengers, all in silence, expectant. Vanessa stopped in the center of the gate, facing everyone. Can I have your attention? She said, her firm and clear voice. The murmur ceased immediately. My name is Vanessa Kane, Federal Civil Aviation Inspector. Many of you filmed the incident that happened here an hour ago. Many have already posted on social networks. Some passengers lowered their eyes, embarrassed. And you had the right to do that, Vanessa continued. What happened was wrong. It was discriminatory. It was unacceptable. Madison was beside her, pale, trembling. But, Vanessa said, and the word fell like a bomb in silence, you don't know the full story, and before they destroyed completely someone's life on social networks, perhaps they should. She turned to Madison. Tell them about Julia. Madison widened her eyes, panicked. Inspector, I can't, maybe yes, and go. Madison looked at the crowd of faces, some curious, some still furious, and then, with a voice breaking every word, he told about the younger sister he loved, about her dreams, about the discrimination it suffered, about depression, about the night he received the call saying that Julia was dead. He told about the guilt, about anger, about how each person plus size he saw was a painful reminder of his sister who could not save. When it ended, the silence was absolute. Some passengers cleaned tears discreetly. Vanessa looked at the crowd. What Madison did to me was wrong, but pain does not justify cruelty, and cruelty does not erase pain. And if everything we do is to exchange one humiliation for another, nothing changes. She paused. Madison will face professional consequences for what he did, will undergo mandatory psychological assessment. It will be suspended and will only come back when ready. Madison looked at Vanessa, tears dripping. But, Vanessa continued, I won't destroy your career, because destroying people does not build a better world. She turned to Madison for the last time. Use this second chance to honor your sister, not through fear and anger, but being the person she always believed you were. Madison covered her face and cried, but this time it was different. It was catharsis. It was relief. Vanessa turned and walked toward the departure tunnel. Behind her, something unexpected happened. A passenger began to applaud, then another, and another. In seconds, the entire gate was applauding, not for Madison, for Vanessa Kane, the inspector who chose justice instead of revenge, humanity instead of cruelty. And at that moment, everyone understood. True strength is not in destroying who hurt you. It is choosing to be greater than the pain. 3 months later, Vanessa Kane was sitting at her office at the Federal Civil Aviation Department, reviewing reports when her phone rang. It was a number she recognized immediately. Inspector Kane, she answered. Vanessa, here is Richard Hayes, commander of the Aerolink 447 flight. I hope not bothering. Vanessa leaned back in her chair. Commander Hayes, what can I do for you? Actually, I'm calling to tell a news, and to thank. Vanessa frowned. To thank? Madison Cole returned to work last week, after 3 months of intensive care, psychological evaluations, and sensitivity training. He paused. And she's different, completely different. Vanessa felt something strange in her chest. Hope, maybe. Different how? Yesterday, she spent 2 hours helping an elderly passenger with reduced mobility. He carried his bags, adjusted his seat, was talking to her throughout the flight. Richard's voice was loaded with emotion. And this morning she defended a plus-size passenger who was being looked strange by another commissioner. He said that everyone deserves respect regardless of appearance. Vanessa closed her eyes, feeling tears burn. Did she mention Julia? Asked softly. Yes, she talked about her sister to the whole team. He told the story, cried, explained why he had acted that way, and apologized. Genuine excuses. And the team? Some are still processing, but most understand, because deep down we all carry some pain. Vanessa opened her eyes and looked through the office window, seeing planes taking off on the horizon. Thank you for telling me, Commander. No, Inspector. Thank you for not destroying her. You could have ended her career that day, but chose to give a chance. And that, it saved a life. He hung up. Vanessa sat silent for long minutes, absorbing the words. Then your cell phone vibrated again. A message of an unknown number. Inspectorate Kane, here is Madison. I know I probably don't want to talk to me, and I understand, but I need to know. You saved me, not only my career, My life. I started therapy. I'm dealing with the loss of Julia in a healthy way for the first time. And every time I help someone now, every time I treat a passenger with dignity, I do it honoring her. I went that day. Vanessa entered a short answer. Use your second chance to make a difference. That's what Julia would have wanted. The answer came immediately. I'll do it. I promise. Vanessa kept her cell phone and returned to the reports but could not focus. His mind returned to that day at the airport, to public humiliation, the anger he felt, and the choice you made. She could have destroyed Madison Cole. It could have used its power to completely annihilate that woman, and part of her still wanted to have done that. But another part, the part that knew pain, which understood trauma, who knew no one is born cruel, chose differently. And now, 3 months later, Madison was alive, working, helping people, honoring the memory of the sister in the right way. Vanessa got up and walked to the window, observing the frantic movement of the airport. He thought every time he was humiliated, in all the sick eyes, in all the people who judged her for her appearance before she met her, and he thought of how many of these people, like Madison, were carrying their own pains. It justified anything, but it explained a lot. Your phone rang again. It was Derek from HR. Vanessa, we have a situation at Terminal C. A commissioner is being accused of discrimination against a disabled passenger. I need you to go there. Vanessa sighed. I'm already going. She took her bag, adjusted the badge around her neck, and left the office. Meanwhile, at International Airport, Madison Cole was at the boarding gate, helping passengers board the afternoon flight. His uniform was impeccable, the perfect bun, but there was something different from her now. His eyes were no longer hard. There was kindness there, genuine care. A plus-size woman approached, nervously holding her ticket. Madison saw the hesitation in her eyes, the fear of being judged. Madison smiled, a true smile. Welcome on board. Let me help with your hand luggage. The woman blinked, surprised. Serious? Of course. Madison took the suitcase and put it in the top compartment easily. Your seat is 12F window. It will have a beautiful view of the mountains. The woman smiled, relieved. Thanks. Thank you very much. Madison nodded, and as the woman walked away, she felt something hot in her chest. It was not complete redemption. It would never be. But it was a beginning, and every time he helped someone, every time he treated a person with the dignity that Julia never received, Madison felt that her sister was there, smiling. Because the best way to honor those we lose is not through anger. It is through love that we had no chance of giving them. 6 months later, Vanessa was in a national conference on inclusion in aviation, invited to be the main speaker. The auditorium was packed. Hundreds of aviation professionals, inspectors, commissioners, pilots, all there to hear about non-discrimination protocols. Vanessa took the stage, the strong spotlight on her face. 6 months ago, she began, her voice echoing through the auditorium. I was publicly humiliated at an airport for a commission that judged me by appearance before I knew who I was. The auditorium was absolutely silent, and I had two choices at that moment: destroy that woman using all the power my position gave me, or understand that pain does not justify cruelty, but it can explain it. She paused. I chose the second option, and that commissioner today is here. Murmurs traveled the audience. Vanessa made a gesture, and the first rouse, Madison Cole got up. His face was pale but determined. Madison Cole, said Vanessa, do you want to come here and tell your story? Madison walked to the stage with trembling legs. He climbed the steps and stood by Vanessa, staring at hundreds of judges. And then, with a choked but firm voice, she told about Julia, about the pain, about how he almost destroyed his own life for not knowing how to deal with the loss, told about the therapy, about learning to honor the sister through goodness, not anger, and he told about the woman who could have ended her, but chose to give a second chance. When it ended, the silence in the auditorium was deep, and then someone started to applaud, then another, and another. In seconds, the entire auditorium was standing, applauding, not only for Madison, but for the possibility of redemption, for the choice of humanity on revenge. Vanessa looked at Madison, and for the first time they hugged each other, two sides of the same pain, two women who found healing through compassion. For today, Madison Cole works as an airline sensitivity training instructor, sharing Julia's story and teaching future commissioners about empathy and inclusion. Vanessa Kane remains federal inspector, but now also leads inclusion programs in aviation, ensuring that no one else is judged by appearance. And somewhere, maybe Julia is smiling, because your life was not in vain, because your pain has turned into purpose, and because in the end, love always overcomes hatred. True justice is not in destroying who hurt us, is in choosing to be the person the world needs us to be. Because revenge can satisfy anger, but only compassion heals injured. And sometimes giving a second chance is not weakness. It's the bravest thing we can do. If this story touched your heart, you subscribe to the channel, because stories of overcoming difficult choices and humanity are what make us stronger. And remember, you always have the power to choose who will be in the face of pain. Choose to be light.